to eat in front of my face. That's all right. It won't bother me. All right, so the last schedule thing we have as far as scheduled demo type stuff is the Windows Intune connector. So supporting some of the additional mobile device platforms that you want to support. Obviously that didn't go over well with somebody. So, so today you have two different ways you can administer your environment. So you can do your on-premise stuff, a lot of the stuff I showed you today, and you guys are familiar with, you're all configuration manager people, so you're all familiar with what you can do with configuration manager, the older versions anyway, and Windows clients. If you're a smaller shop and you don't have a configuration manager environment yet, and you also then have maybe some mobile device you want to manage, you can use Windows Intune. And I can just show you real quickly what that admin console looks like. I still have it here. Anyway, you go to the website, accounts.manage.microsoft.com. You go ahead and log in with your appropriate login ID. And that will go ahead and take you to your Windows Intune portal. So if you don't have configuration manager, you can go ahead and use Windows Intune, which is a cloud-based solution to manage Windows clients, same basic versions of Windows clients we support with Configuration Manager, as well as some additional mobile devices now. So this is talking about Windows Intune Wave B, which is the newest release of Windows Intune, which came out the same time that we released Service Pack 1, so past month. So in the admin section is where you go in there and set up the users that you want to have connecting up and enrolling devices into your infrastructure. What you want to do is set up ADFS as an integration point between your on-premise Active Directory environment and Windows Intune Cloud Service, and then have a utility called DIRSync that would then do a directory synchronization between your on-premise AD and the cloud-based solutions. You don't have to go through and manage users individually. I just went ahead and created a couple of users besides me. But as far as administration stuff goes, you go to Admin Console, and in the Admin Console, you would be allowed to go in there and, when it updates, you'll be able to download the client agent for Windows clients. So there'll be a client agent you would install on Windows XP up through Windows 8 clients. Very much like you'd install a Configuration Manager client agent on here. So you go ahead and create that. So here's the download and deploy client software. You can go ahead and manage software updates through Windows Intune. You can manage endpoint protection through Windows Intune. You can set up alerts. You can do software distribution through Windows Intune. In fact, I think maybe I didn't manage software. I think I went ahead and created one time. Yeah, toolkit. So you can deploy software executables and MSIs. You can go ahead and manage your licenses that you have for your environment. Set up policies. So some policies, very much like VCM settings that you have in Config Manager. Run some reports. And then some administrative tools that you have for seeing what some of the results were of your work. So this is through the Windows Intune Admin Console. You have a fairly similar type set of experiences from Intune that you have from Configuration Manager. No operating system deployment. There is some remote assistance technology for Windows-based clients, but you know, remote assistance requires the end user to be there to say, yes, I want to take control, where our remote control technology, Configuration Manager, doesn't have to have user permission required. But you have some of those basic features of security through patching and antivirus software and endpoint protection. You have software distribution. You have some settings compliance to keep your environment up and running, and then you go ahead and do some reporting of that. So that's if you want to go ahead and manage that. Now, with that, that's for a cloud-based solution. And that also does include some additional mobile platforms. Well, if you don't want to manage your cloud-based solution, if you don't want to manage your cloud-based solution, you want to manage through your Configuration Manager on-premise environment, then what you can do is you still do your administration of your Windows environments like you have today. plus you get the Mac, plus you get the Linux Unix that we talked about. So we're expanding our scope now to include those non-Windows platforms. And then you get all the other features that we have, the additional capabilities of Configuration Manager, the OSDs, remote controls, the full DCM stuff you have, more complete patching and controls over things and so on. But now you have this BYOD phenomenon. Everybody's bringing in their own iPhones or iPads or the Surface devices out now, and you want to manage your Windows RT devices, Windows Phone 8, so you want to manage all these guys. Well, you can't do that natively directly with only Configuration Manager. So Configuration Manager, you can't natively manage those type of devices. iOS, Windows RT, Windows Phone 8, or Android. If you want to manage them through Configuration Manager, you have two different options available to you. So you can have your Configuration Manager on-premise solution, to get all the same roles that you normally have. You have all those. And then to manage some of those mobile devices, you can set up a new role, Exchange Active Sync. So you can implement an Exchange Active Sync environment so that you can have your Exchange environment where your mobiles would enroll and connect to Exchange Active Sync, and then they would get sent into your environment here, and you'd be able to see them just like we saw the Mac, like double Linux, Unix, and so on. And then you can create some very, very basic policies to them and do remote wipe type stuff. But very, very light management. Realistically, it's one line in discovery, maybe a little bit, really tiny little bit of inventory, but realistically, you don't really count discovery or inventory. A little bit of settings management, like 5 different policy groups that you can send out there, and then remote wipe. So very, very basic, what we call light management. So that's through Exchange and Active Sync connection. So any device that can connect to Exchange Active Sync, you can go ahead and manage.
Does it work with Office 365?
We do support Exchange Online. We do provide those through ours. Now, if you don't want to do that, then your better solution is through Windows Intune integration. So now you have the cloud-based solution, Windows Intune, and you want to integrate our environment with the Windows Intune infrastructure. That's going to get your best read of both environments. So Exchange, again, is very, very limited in what you can do, but we can't manage those natively with Configuration Manager. So it's either Exchange or you're integrating with Intune. So the two choices you have with Intune is use their admin console, which is the one I just showed you. So you're managing things through the Windows Intune console for the devices that you want to manage through Intune. Let's just say the mobile devices. And then using our admin console for managing your Windows devices, Windows, Macs, Linux, Unix. So you have 2 different administrative portals, if you wish to manage your appropriate type of devices. A better solution, what most people think, is to take our environment and integrate it with Windows Intune. So you're having one administrative console that manages all your Windows environments, and then the same console administers your Intune infrastructure. But when you configure that, you can then no longer use the Intune console to manage that connection, those devices you're managing through Configuration Manager.
You lose any features, functionality?
No.
Except for the console? Okay.
Correct. So that's what I'm going to show you, and that's what our recommendation is, both from the Windows Intune side of the house and for Configuration Manager. If you're a ConfigNet customer and you need to manage these devices, do the integration Configuration Manager. Get one portal that you're going through and doing all your work with. So what you do is go to your administration workspace, and this is assuming you already have a Windows Intune subscription. If you guys don't have one, anybody can sign up for a 30-day trial Windows Intune subscription and play around with the product. You can also, for like a cloud-based VP, you can sign up for a 90-day, or I think you used to be able to anyway, I think you still do it, a 90-day trial Azure account, or creating cloud-based VP and playing around with that. Anywho, go to Hierarchy Configuration in SP1, and you have this new node here called Windows Intune Subscriptions. And I don't know why they say subscriptions when you're only allowed one. So it's Windows Intune Subscription. So I can't create a new one, it's already there. But what you would do is you go up here to the ribbon and you say create Windows Intune subscription. When you do that, it launches off a wizard. You've seen plenty of our wizards before. But in essence, what we'll ask you for is I'll take my existing subscription and go to properties. We're going to ask you for which collection of clients do you want to allow to enroll devices into your Intune infrastructure and managed by configuration manager. And I just said all users. There's also another checkbox on here that you don't see at this point in time, but there's a checkbox in here that would ask, oops, that's not an arrow, sorry. Somewhere in there it asks you, do you want to allow configuration manager to administer this connection? If so, then you lose your access to the Intune portal. Now, so I can still log into the Windows Intune portal, I just can't manage any devices there that I'm managing through configuration manager, the connection. Then you're allowed to specify your information for the company apps portal. This would be the portal that would appear on your Windows Phone 8 or your Windows RT device or your iOS device. That would be basically your application catalog for end user targeted software distribution. So I put in WAL-EM demo environment and selected blue for the color. You can also put in here a URL to like a HTTP internal site privacy.com. So because an end user is bringing their own device that they own into your company environment, and you might then be installing stuff on it like settings, you might have to put some privacy information, let them know, hey, here's what may happen on your device if you use it at work. So you can create your own environment for that. And then lastly is which site there it is. Which site is managing this infrastructure? So I'm in a hierarchy, I have a CAS and two primary sites. Which site are all these clients basically being assigned to and managed by? It's one site code, there's no roaming like you have for normal Windows clients. So you configure those. Then the next page we pop up in the wizard is what platforms do you want to support? And we have checkboxes here for Android, iOS, Windows RT, and Windows Phone 8. You go ahead and pick, just by checkboxes, which platforms you want to support with Windows Intune through Configuration Manager. And the reason we ask for those individually is that they each have different certificate requirements that you have to satisfy. So again, I've already done it, so I can't show you that checkbox, but I can show you the end result. So for Android, there actually is nothing. You just say, yes, I want to enable Android management. There's no specific platform settings for Android because it's kind of much more basic in the management capabilities. So there's not a management API built into the operating system like the other three platforms have, your iOS, your Windows Phone 8, your Windows RT, and there's no client agent for an Android. So there's no certificate requirements for it. So you just select the checkbox. For iOS, if you state you want to enable it, you have to go and acquire what's called an Apple Push Notification Certificate. You have to go create that, and then you have to browse to it and import it here in the wizard. Now, how you get that is up here on the ribbon. There's a ribbon action up here to create APN certificate request. So before you start this process of creating your Windows Intune subscription, you'd run this guy first. That makes a request to Apple saying, hey, I want to go ahead and manage iOS devices, and I need a certificate to do that. And then they'll send you back your web link, they'll send you back the certificate. You then download that cert, and you import it here where it says your certificate for iOS. And you can see mine says certificate on file. So I've got that certificate implemented in my environment. So you do that. Then you do the same thing for Windows RT, specify your certificate for code signing, and Windows Phone 8, your certificates for those if you're going to manage those platforms. So you go through, select the operating system that you want, you go through the process of importing the appropriate certificates you want. Once you've got that done, the next thing you do for your environment is to set up a brand new site system role that you see here on your site server, that I see on my site server, called the Windows Intune connector. This is a site system role you only have available to you once you've done the Windows Intune subscription. to create the Windows Intune subscription for your site, and then now you go to add site system roles, and you see Windows Intune connector. And basically what the Windows Intune connector is a site system Windows Intune connector is the site system role so that when you, the admin, do work, your admin work goes to the Windows Intune connector and then is pushed up to the cloud. When your clients that are being managed by the Windows Intune cloud service have data or whatever, they send it back to the Windows Intune connector and then back up to your site through the processing on the site server in the database. So it's basically the intermediary between you, the admins, and config manager, and that cloud service running up Windows Intune. So there's no parameters for it. Just go ahead and say, yes, I want to install the Windows Intune connector, and bingo, away you go. Now, when you set up the connector, your subscription to the connector, one other site system role you get, and you see it right here, is manage.microsoft.com. We create for you a brand new site system called manage.microsoft.com. You see it is a distribution point. And if you go look at its properties of a DP, you see there ain't a whole lot there. Group relationship, you put what content's on there, and that's about it. Really what this is, if you go down and look at DPs, it's your cloud-based distribution point for managing your software distribution to your Intune-based clients. So we automatically create for you a cloud-based DP called manage.microsoft.com. So one per environment, one per hierarchy, that all of your Windows Intune-based clients, when you just target software to them, you're going to put it on this cloud-based DP, and that's where they're going to go get their software. They're not going to get their software from your on-premise-based DP. They're going to get it from a cloud-based DP. So we create that for you automatically as a cloud-based DP. Very much like you can create your own cloud-based DP by sitting over here and going to cloud and punching in your Windows Azure subscription ID and the certificate you want to use, and then go through the rest of the wizard.
So how do they get to that DP, cloud-based DP? Can they use data connection for Wi-Fi?
They're on the internet. So they're connected up to the internet however they get there, and whatever their connection is. Okay, so you have that. So that gets your infrastructure there. So you got your cloud service, you got your on-premise solution, you got the connector between the two, the Windows Intune connector, you got a cloud DP sitting up there as well. Now, what you would do is to go ahead and enroll your device. And the different devices that you want to support have different processes for enrolling. Windows Phone 8. So in a Windows Phone 8 device, you would go to Settings, you would go to Company Apps, and you click Add Device. You'd log in, basically put in your corporate email address, and that would go ahead and enroll you, provided that you're in the group that is allowed to enroll devices. So I said all users. That would go ahead and allow you to enroll your device with the appropriate certificates, and bingo, it would appear in the Windows Intune infrastructure. Windows RT, all you have to do is go to the Company Apps portal, which is already built into Windows RT, and just click Enroll. And nothing else you have to do. Just go to Enroll and log in, and bingo, you're enrolled. iOS, you'd have to go ahead and download a package. You have to create a package for iOS for the Company Apps portal. You would download it, and you just go ahead and enroll your device into an iOS environment. So you basically, each different operating system platform you have would go ahead and enroll a little bit differently to the environment. If these guys publish the recordings from the session last Thursday, System Center Universe, Dan Anderson, who's actually based here in Houston, he's part of the Windows Intune team now, he did a presentation right after mine that was on how to go ahead and enroll he did Windows Phone 8. And he showed screenshots of all the buttons you clicked and all the things you have to do to go ahead and enroll a Windows Phone 8. And he talked about the other platforms as well, the specific things. And our Windows Intune documentation, which our TechNet docs for Configuration Manager will point you to those. We'll walk you through the steps of provisioning each of those different devices and getting them enrolled in your infrastructure. So once you've enrolled a device into your environment, it will appear here in your inventory or list of devices. And here's my Windows RT device. So here's my Windows RT device, and you see it's got that same icon that you saw as a Macintosh. It's got a mobile device icon, which certainly makes more sense. Windows Phone 8 or iOS type device, but even RT is considered as a mobile device. It's not domain joined environment and so on. So you go ahead and go to Windows RT, in this case Wally MRT, and you'll see that it's treated as a client, so Heartbeat Discovery. Tells you it's a Windows RT, it's a mobile device, and the client agent version is not Configuration Manager, but it's the client agent from Windows Intune. Tells you the processor and all the normal stuff that you would get from a discovery data, Heartbeat Discovery record from a client. Depending upon the platform, you may very well get hardware inventory as well. So Windows RT, we do get some hardware inventory back. So you get a little bit of inventory data back from your client computer. You get that from iOS as well, and Windows Phone 8. You get nothing back for hardware inventory from Android. Because again, there's no management APIs there, and there's no client agent for it. We're looking at, in the future, hoping to create a client agent for Android, so we put something on the box to give you more management capabilities. But we didn't make it for SP1. So you get hardware inventory information back from most of your different devices. You can create collections of those based on the type of device you want to distribute software to or settings to. So you create collections of those based on your hardware inventory properties or just your discovery properties. From there, the basic management capabilities are, since we're sitting right here, we have remote wipe, so retire or wipe. The retire action, for those that are supported, the retire means don't manage it anymore through Configuration Manager in Intune. So I don't want to be managed anymore by some corporate entity. That would then either disable the ability of running any applications you distributed through Intune or Configuration Manager, or we would automatically uninstall those applications, depending upon, again, the platform. Some of the platforms have different restrictions on whether to uninstall them versus just blocking them. The remote wipe says, hey, I lost my phone at the airport. It ain't ever coming back. And I used it on company networks, and I want to make sure it's secure, any company data. So we're going to send a wipe command to that guy, and it's going to reset the factory defaults, which means it's going to wipe out any and all data there. The retire doesn't touch user data. It's only the company stuff you put out there being your applications and not managed anymore by us. Wipe is reset the factory defaults. So you have that, and oops, I goofed. I didn't really mean to do that, so you can cancel that retire or wipe command if you need to.
Does wipe also kill anything on the storage cards?
I don't think a factory default would change that. Yeah, all it's supposed to do is reset the factory defaults. So now you get software distribution. So you go to your application management, go to applications. You create a new app, and here I've got a couple of sample apps, so let's show you real quickly. You would go here and pick the type of application you want to deploy. So the Windows installer, you guys know that was there. That's MSI-based installations. Windows App Package, that APX file, and Windows App Package in the Windows Store, that's for Windows 8 clients. So clients that you're going to go and deploy software to Windows 8, including Windows RT. App v4, that's what we saw earlier, and that's what you had in RTM. App v5 is the new App v stuff for on-premise. Windows Phone App Package and Windows Phone App Package in the Windows Phone Store is for Windows Phone 8. Windows Mobile Cabinet, that was there in RTM, and that's for Windows Mobile 6.1, Windows Phone 6.5, which we know nobody uses those anymore, but we still support them, because there are people that still use them. And then down below is the Nokia Symbian stuff. So those were three platforms. We actually have a client agent for those mobile devices that you enroll and install a client agent on those devices, and you get more capabilities. More software distribution, more settings management, more inventory data than you would get like an EAS environment. So much more like you get with the integration with Windows Intune, because we have a client agent for them. And then the two app packages for iOS, and then the two app packages for Android. The Nokia was, again, from RTM, for Nokia Symbian Bell devices, and we saw the Mac OS X. So you have those new types of applications that you can go and create. So you just go ahead and either create your own Windows 8 app, or get your IPA file, or your Android file, whatever it is. You go get those files, or if you want to go ahead and use a store-based app, you go ahead and browse, take the option here for Windows Phone Store, or Windows Store, or Apple Store, or Google Play. You just browse to the URL of that store, find the application you want, and then we basically publish it through our company apps portal. So you're basically just taking our portal as a one-stop shop for your end users to go find software, you know, the stuff that you create on your own or get that you install locally versus having to buy it through a store, and then referencing them to a store location for other apps that you think they should have. But they would install it from our portal, that would just take them to the store to get the appropriate application. So you browse that location and find the application you want, publish it in our portal, they see everything, your LOB apps, and then your store-based apps in one portal. So I went ahead and have a iPhone application in here. Just go look at some of the properties of it. So deployment types, again, it's iOS-based. And you have content. So where the content came from, this is an internal file server. And then any requirements you want to have on that, if you want to add in any requirements for a device. In this case for iOS, it's minimum operating system version, operating system, and operating system language. So you go ahead and set your minimum version, or you can set the operating system version that you want. iPhones and iPads, the appropriate version. So go ahead and configure whatever your requirements are. It gets distributed just like you would a normal Windows-based application. It goes through our connector up to the cloud. The clients go ahead and do their check-in for policies. Some of them it's 8 hours, some of them it's 24 hours, and so on. When they check in for policies, they see your deployment. It's available software distribution. So if I look at my iPhone app here and click deployments, you see it's targeted to all users, and it's listed as available. So it's user-based, optional software distribution. We're not forcing software down on these devices because they're not company-owned devices. So it's end-user available software through the application catalog, or the company apps portal, appropriately.
So application deployment is only available through the Intune, right? Or can
for the mobile devices, yes. For a Windows Phone 8, Windows RT, iOS, and Android, through Windows Intune connector. Obviously, your on-premise Windows 8 devices and all lower platforms, and whenever I say Windows 8, that means Windows Server 2012 as well. We support that as a client. Those are all supported on-premise through our normal configuration management infrastructure. But for those 4 platforms, we'll only support them through either Exchange ActiveSync, which is no software distribution, or through the Windows Intune connector.
And if you first connect to the Exchange and import all the devices via the Exchange, you can always migrate to Intune later on. Is that correct?
Yes, you can go ahead and take a device that's being managed currently through Exchange, or still being managed through Exchange ActiveSync, and then also enroll it into your Intune infrastructure.
So if it's still managed through Exchange and also enroll into Intune, will you have 1 entry or 2 entries into the config manager?
2 into 1 entry.
One entry. So it will recognize the device.
Yeah. Our code is supposed to take care of the connection between the EAS record and the Intune record for that. But you could have some conflicts in policies, because Exchange can do some policies and we can do some policies as well. And then, if I remember correctly, the Windows Intune policies take precedence over the Exchange policies where there's conflicts.
So the Intune policies, do you configure them now in SCCM?
Yes. So what you would do here for policies, you would go to Assets and Compliance. You would go to Compliance Settings, Configuration Items. You go create a configuration item, and password, even though I misspelled it. And then you go down and say mobile device. We saw, you've done Windows before, and we saw Mac OS X. You would take mobile device. And then here are the policy groupings that we have available to you through do this configuration for your platforms through our connector to Windows Intune. So you pick whichever settings group you want, or all of them, and you go ahead and take the settings and go ahead and apply those. If you're not sure, you want to see everything, you can go down to this bottom option of configure additional settings that are not in the default groups, and to take that guy, that gives you a flat listing of everything, and it shows you the appropriate group. You just have a dump of all of them, and then pick and choose by name instead of trying to figure out which group it's in. You can just go ahead and see, oh, I want password policy or whatever, a camera. You can pick that. So close that. Go previous. But if I don't do that, I just say, oh, I want password policy, and clear that guy. So password and security, pick the appropriate ones I want, click next, and now I go ahead and say password is required, and I want to have a minimum password length of 6 characters, and number of failed login attempts, password complexity. Just go ahead and configure those appropriate settings, and then you have remediation. So you can configure whether you want to remediate non-compliant settings. And that's for password policy. Then here I want to go ahead and prohibit the use of the camera on devices. You go ahead and set in whatever the appropriate settings are that you want, and then pick the mobile platforms you want this policy applied to. And again, it's got the appropriate platforms you want. And then we go through here and look and see, okay, based on the policies you said you wanted, this camera for security is not applicable for Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT. And the password complexity and password require settings are not applicable for Windows RT. So we give you any deltas of what you think you're trying to do and what we're going to allow you to do as far as applicability. And then you can go ahead and do an export report here, so you can have a management report of, here's what I wanted to do, but I wasn't allowed to based on platform restrictions. And you go ahead and create your configuration item or items, as many as you want, and then you know what to do from there. You add those to a baseline, you deploy the baseline to a collection of clients, and then they would go ahead and go to the Windows Intune infrastructure, and then when they next log into their policy check, they would go and get those settings applied to them as long as you've done the remediation, and they were applicable settings. And then you would get to do your normal deployment, so you get it in the monitoring workspace, your deployments, you get the status back for the policy settings that you deployed to your clients.
Well, I got a question from Link. Someone was asking concerning mobile device management, if there was a way to auto-enroll straight from Exchange.
You can get auto-enroll what?
Straight from Exchange, I guess via the connector.
No, there's no auto-enrollment capabilities that I'm aware of. We do have auto-enrollment if you have the old native configuration manager mobile device, which is Nokia and Windows Mobile, Windows Phone, 6165 platforms. But for any of the newer stuff, there's nothing else. As far as I know, you still have to do a manual installation enrollment process for users. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that Intune's made a lot of steps. This is their 4th release in Windows Intune Wave D, and they're on a 6-month release cycle. So every 6 months, Intune does an update of feature sets for you. So they've got a very aggressive schedule as far as when they release new technology, new capabilities. But obviously, because it's every 6 months, you're not going to get as many new features in each release cycle, because it takes a long time to go ahead and do work, even though it sounds like, well, 6 months is a long time. But we'll have test cycles that will last months at a time. Go ahead and validate all the platforms with all the capabilities, with all the different scenarios we have going on, and so on. Then obviously there's only so many weeks of dev time to really code stuff. Then we have to have testing, we have to have bug fixing on it, and then more complete testing, and then betas and RCs and tap customer bit and testing and so on. So it sounds like a long time, but it really isn't that long. And we've never done anything on a 6-month cycle, configuration manager SMS space. Well, maybe back in the old SMS 2.0 days when we had some really bad problems and we had to create service packs really quick. We may have, but those are more bug fix type things. For the most part, we released RTM in April and released SP1 just last month, so it's like a 9-month cycle. And that's pretty aggressive for the configuration manager team. because you guys know, we've traditionally been 2003, 2007, 2012, 4 to 5 years for a full cycle, and then obviously a couple service packs in there. And we've only released 2 service packs for, I think, about 2007. So we're much on the slower end of things. We're trying to tighten up our release cycle, so I don't think we have any plans at all going to a 6-month cycle like Intune does, but we certainly don't want to be a cycle where we're going every 2-3 years. So we want to have things faster than that. So I think you'll probably see things from the configuration manager side of the house, the on-premise solution, maybe on a yearly basis. Now, we kind of accelerated the SP1 stuff because of Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012. That operating system, those operating systems came out October, and it still took us a few months before we had our code out in the channel for people to gain access to. So that we have to wait till they go to RTM before we can go ahead and validate all of our stuff, go through our test cycles on it. So we're never going to be instantaneous with the operating system, but we're trying to get as close as possible to their ship cycles for that support. But from there, new stuff, we'll wait and see if it's going to be 9 months, a year, whatever it is. But we wouldn't expect things to be the 3 to 4 years as we have been in the past. But not expecting to be the 6-month cycle when the Intune does. So they'll have another release this summer. And we'll have a cumulative update this summer for Configuration Manager 2012 SP1. Like we're going to quarterly CUs now for Configuration Manager. So we've released 2 CUs for Config Manager 2012. So we released it in April, and our first CU then probably would have been in July, and then October, something like that. Or maybe it was August and December. I don't know what the exact dates were, but about every quarter we plan on doing a CU, a cumulative update. So an update, roll up all the hotfixes. So we don't want to stay in the business of having to release 30 hotfixes that you guys have to pick and choose. Okay, what do I really need to do here? And we get emails all the time on our internal alias. Customer just installed RTM. What are all the hotfixes we need to deploy? Well, we don't want that. We want you to say, okay, you installed RTM. Now the latest CU is CU2. You install it, and that's got all the hotfixes in there. And we'll do more testing, longer test cycles. CU, not maybe expensive as a service pack would be, but certainly more test cycles than a single hotfix. So that's where we want people going. We don't want to have to release individual hotfixes anymore. And that we obviously did have to do with that hotfix for that certificate issue. We couldn't wait for a CU for it. And we only had one thing, so there's no need to create a CU for just one hotfix. So we did release that one hotfix. But as a general rule, we don't want to do individual hotfixes unless it's obviously a mission critical type thing, one-off things. But for the most part, it's needed in the CU scenario. So anyway, as we go further along, you would expect that you'd want to see more convergence between what you can do over here in an on-premise solution and what you can do in a cloud-based solution. So there's capabilities over here that we have that it's not available for the cloud-based solution. And we want to try and get things closer together. Today, it's still a little bit of a choice. You guys have to decide whether you want to do Configuration Manager or Intune. It'd be great if there was a solution that you didn't have to care about whether it was on-premise or it was cloud-based. You just say, hey, I got these clients I need to manage, go ahead and manage them and get there. But that's probably way down the road. I'll get in trouble. So you just want to try and get to the convergence of the technology. So if you don't have Configuration Manager, you can implement Intune, and you can do that today, and you got great features. You just don't have all the same features you have with the on-premise solution.
Are you working on having more tighter integration with other third-party devices?
Other third-party devices, as in?
No, like iOS or Android.
Oh, we certainly want to improve the capabilities of our management for those devices, yes. And Android, right now, it's limited by the fact that you still have to have an Exchange Active Sync connector for Android. To really do anything, even with Windows Intune, you still have to have Exchange Active Sync. So we want to get a client agent on there that would then remove the Exchange Active Sync requirements for it. But yeah, we want to go ahead and get more capabilities here. We want to have more capabilities for our own platform as well, Windows Phone 8 and Windows RT, because they don't have everything that we want to do either.
Is BlackBerry out of the picture?
Is BlackBerry out of the picture? We're always evaluating additional operating systems to see where our customers want us to go and what we can do in appropriate time frames we have. So I would not say it's out of the picture. is certainly lower on the priority scale than some other things. Like, I don't work in the Intune space. We actually merged together. So the configuration manager team and the Intune team are one team now. But the Intune, they were always a separate product group until we just merged in the past few months. So it was always, those guys are doing that and we're doing this, and now it's, we're doing this. So I'm not privy to all the conversations, but from what I would expect and what I've heard, getting Android more capabilities is a higher priority than getting BlackBerry into the story. But I don't know where your people doing their discussions and investigation for Wave E, if they've changed that philosophy at all. So that I don't know. So we'll see as things come up. But you would expect that we'd want to get better feature set compatibility between the two different solutions.
So the Intune's release cycle is on 6 months, you said, and SCCM is longer. So as Intune adds more features, more policies to deploy to clients, does that mean that if we choose to manage everything through SCCM console, we don't get to use those new features until you guys implement them in SCCM?
That's a great question. And until we get to the point where they've got a release cycle and we haven't got a release cycle yet, I can't give you an answer yet as to how big of a gap there's going to be there on if they implement additional capabilities. Are you going to be lacking the ability of managing those additional capabilities until we come up with some fix to or some update to handle that? I don't know what the story is on that yet. I'm given the fact that we want these products to converge as much as possible, I would expect that that would not be a big deal, that we would have some way of accommodating that. Maybe it's a very fast a mini service pack that would say, okay, this now supports Windows into Wave E. So I don't know what that release cycle is going to be and so on, but that certainly would not be a good story if they're releasing stuff that you, being a big man customer, integration can't take advantage of for that.
From what I see with this integration, so is now SCCM competing with MDM solutions like Afaria and AirWatch? Is that the plan? Because I see that the tool now can do almost everything that we could do with an MDM solution. Not quite everything. Is that the plan?
Well, we don't ever market our product as being, hey, we created this to compete with ABC company. We just go with what our customers are telling us they need to have, and what they say, hey, I don't want to have to go out and buy a third-party solution to implement this. I want Microsoft's solution, so here's the features we need to have, and we do our best we can to accommodate those requests. We obviously have to be very careful because it seems like every time we turn around, we're getting sued by somebody because we did something that they already did. So we have to be careful of that. That's why when I'm at a conference, I try not to look at anybody's third-party booths, because if they show me something and all of a sudden, hey, I showed Wally this, and now 6 months later, config man, you're doing the same thing. I don't want to get sued. I don't want to be this guy having to fly to New York and go through some deposition. So I try and stay away from those things. But so we try not to look at third-party products to see what they have. We just go with what our customers tell us that we need to have, that they need out of our solution to go ahead and implement a product so they can utilize without having to spend extra money on a third party.
Have you done any requests for normalizing reports on software?
Absolutely.
Is there any route of that or any direction?
So it's basically asset intelligence, and what people really want to have is either all the products merged together so it's easier to do reporting on it, or they want to have true-up reporting. So being able to, at the end of your yearly cycle, run a report and say, hey, Microsoft, here's what I have, and you guys trust it because it came from you. It's configuration manager data. And we're not there yet. So we're not there yet. It's a common request. There's some new ISO standards that have come out that once we implement those in our product, that will make things a whole lot better to do some of that rationalization and normalization of reports and the true-up stuff. We're not there yet. But we know that, and it's something we're working on trying to gain. Okay, so we're about out of time. Let me do a couple more things in the console. You guys keep firing up questions as you have them. But a couple of things I wanted to show you guys, just that you have the information. So you guys had, in the RTM code, you didn't have these two nodes there. So these are new nodes for SP1. Now, file replication was actually there, but it was listed as addresses. So your addresses node has gone away. It's now been replaced by file replication. And the reason being, that's really what it is. It's for replicating from like a secondary site up to a parent primary site. So it's your addresses. So we call it file replication now. And we added this node called database replication, which gives you in Service Pack 1 the capability of controlling your SQL replication between your CAS, your primary, and your secondary. So is compression turned on? When are you replicating data between your sites in the hierarchy? So kind of like the scheduler 24/7 type stuff. And what type of data are you replicating? Maybe you, a remote location, you don't want hardware inventory forwarded up to your parent site, to the CAS. So you want to keep that data local and not have it pushed over the wire. But now your admin up at the CAS says, I need to run a report for management that has all company data for all my sites. And I don't have Houston's data. So we're going to, when the report runs, it's going to go ahead and connect up to Houston interactively, run SQL distributed views to grab the data it needs to run into the report, generate the report, and not store the data in the CAS database. So it gives you some controls over how, when, and what data is replicated with SQL Server. Cloud, obviously, we talked about that. Cloud-based VP, Windows Intune subscription, we talked about that. Site configuration, we went through the rest of the new site system roles there and saw some other capabilities and changes there. Client settings. So we have some client settings there. So cloud services. So which clients are allowed to access Cloud VPs? I mentioned that when I was talking about Cloud VPs right before lunch, so you can control that. So that's a new setting. Metered internet connections. Go ahead and click on him. This is that Windows 8 feature. If you have a 3G, 4G connection in your system that we can recognize, do you want to allow us to utilize Configuration Manager over that 3G or 4G connection? And then again, you control which clients have access to utilizing that. And then when you do your deployment, as required, remember that checkbox I showed you, allow metered internet connections to download the software at the deadline, which might incur additional costs. So controlling that. Endpoint protection, there was a couple new things in here for Windows Embedded that we saw. For Windows Embedded, disable the write filter, and others persist restarts and so on. Metered internet connections, enrollment, we saw that. Power management, that has the wake up proxy stuff in there that we talked about. I don't recall anything else in here new, other than, again, the computer agent thing that showed you at the very bottom for disabling randomization of deadlines for software updates and application deployments. So we do that.
Hey, well, I got a question concerning application deployment. So the new application model, you can have dependencies. What about post-installation steps like, oh, I have to write this registry key, I have to give access to this file or this directory, things like that. Would you recommend still using a task sequence in that scenario, or?
You can either use a task sequence or use a configuration item, a script-based configuration item, or if it's registry type stuff or WMI, do it remediate those, but do a configuration item with remediation on it. So you can do that as well, either one. Monitoring, alerts, you got a new UI here for alerts, so all your alerts go into one alert space now. And then you have a node here for active alerts. But what's new here is that for all different types of alerts, like database replication component failed, low disk space, critical disk space for your SQL Server drive, you can now create subscriptions for them. And subscriptions allow you to generate emails when this alert hits. In the RTM product, the emails were only for endpoint protection. So a malware outbreak occurred. But now it's for all your different alert types. So that gives you much more notice into issues in your environment. Querying, reporting, essentially the same. Site hierarchy, the same. Status, deployments. Client operations, we saw that. That's those real-time actions. So we saw that. Database replication is the same thing here as it was in the administration workspace. You got the new node for new dashboard for endpoint protection I showed you when we did that demo. Software library, applications, essentially the same other than the new types of apps that I showed you. at-v virtual environments, we saw that. Windows keys, side loading keys. So the keys that you would need to install Windows 8 applications onto a Windows RT device. And you can see I've got one in here that I've loaded in. So managing your side loading keys for Windows RT. Software updates, the big thing that's changed there is multiple software update points per site. So now it's up to 8 software update points. So you can distribute them to remote locations as necessary. The ability of synchronizing your software update catalog 3 times a day versus the single once a day that we did in RTM. And when you go down to automatic deployment rules and go create an automatic deployment rule, we now have some templates built in for you. So we have a template for definition update management. Oops. Sorry. Definition updates as well as Patch Tuesday. So we have a couple of ADR templates already built in for you, so now you can just use our template to populate the forms, the wizard pages for you, and then if you need to make changes, you can go ahead and do that as appropriate for you. Try to make it easier for automatic deployment rules. And software updates, the other thing I mentioned was when you're deploying software updates on your deployment, you can state the clients can fall back to the internet. So Microsoft Update gives updates. Operating system deployment, a couple of things of interest would be if you ever go in and modify your boot images to, like you want to display a HTML or HTA file to your end users asking something. In RTM, you had to use DISM commands to mount your boot swim, modify it, inject some cab file, and then save it out and unmount it. Now you want to modify your boot image, just go to Properties, you go to Optional Components, here's the components built in, and now you just go click New, and here's a listing of all the HTAs that we're aware of. Go ahead and take HTML, so WinPE HTA, click OK, and bingo. We're going to go ahead and do all those DISM commands that you had to do on your own. So much, much easier for you. We also automatically select the enable pre-stage boot image from Pixie-enabled DPs. The most common problem people had with previous releases is they try and do Pixie and they forget to do that. They wouldn't have the boot image on the Pixie service point or Pixie-enabled DP, so Pixie wouldn't do anything. So now we just select that for you automatically.
Does the boot image change from SP1?
From RTM, yes, because it's the new 80K. So the 80K is WinPE 4.0. So, so you do have to take any custom boot images you have and upgrade the WinPE version now to deploy them through SP1. Yep. You can also if you need to modify your WinPE scratch space size, you go ahead and do that here. On task sequences, I could create one, but we have the ability of supporting UEFI systems now as well as BIOS. And when you create a task sequence to deploy an OS, we'll have a task sequence command for both UEFI as well as BIOS. And they're conditional, so they'll only run the appropriate one in the appropriate type of hardware you have. UEFI gets you better security and faster boot times and so on. When you deploy a task sequence, you can now deploy it to be hidden, or you can say only deploy, the task sequence is only available to WinPE. So basically, Pixie boot and boot media. You guys may have heard of the Australian bank scenario, happened a number of months ago. Somebody deployed a task sequence in essence to all systems, and they're all existing configuration manager clients, went to all systems, and it basically pre-imaged everybody. So not a good scenario. So one of those resume generating events. But, so now when you deploy your task sequences, you can say, make this available to only configuration manager clients, so in-place upgrade through software distribution, or make it available to only to Pixie and boot media, or you say make it available to everybody. You could even say make it available to Pixie and boot media hidden. And then even if you went into Pixie boot scenario, you wouldn't see that task sequence. You'd have to have some sort of script that would kick it off for you. So it gives you better security for those type of environments. Plus, it also gives you flexibility so that now for the break-fix scenario, you can deploy a task sequence to all systems and say only WinPE and boot media. and then you'd only see it if you actually intentionally did a WinPE, or instead of boot media, or you did a fixie, so did the F12 when you're booting up. So it was your own choice that you did the fixie scenario, and then you would see the task sequence. So you can do that. So that way, in a break-fix scenario, you can deploy a task sequence to all systems, but you wouldn't see it until your computer was busted, and you went to a fixie boot, network boot, or a boot media, and then you would see the task sequence. So easier to repair without having to add your computer, the busted one, to a collection of busted clients or whatever. So we've done some things to make that easier for you. We also support Windows to Go. So Windows to Go is basically taking, through OSD, putting Windows 8 on a bootable USB stick. And so you provision that through Configuration Manager. You can even do it through our application catalog, so an end user would go down to their desktop, load the application catalog. Oh, WinPE or Windows Go, I want that. They say install. It prompts them for a USB stick. They put in a certified USB stick. We validate it, and if so, then we'll go ahead and provision that stick with Windows to Go or Windows 8 on it in a portable scenario. Now they take the stick out, and they go ahead and punch it in any other computer, and they're running your corporate version of Windows 8. So it's great for the contractor scenario where you have contractors come in and you don't want to issue them a corporate laptop. They can bring in their own laptop, they boot up with your stick when they're on site, and they got your corporate image running. When they're leaving, they disconnect the stick and they boot up their own image back to their own vendor-based OS image. So great scenarios for that.